a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes, where we're changing the world. Wait for it. One ohm at a time here at OMTimes Radio. On the first Thursday of every month, you know that it is time for none other than Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed and I to kick the world around like it was a soccer ball and see what maybe different or new perspectives we can give you on life, the world, and whatever else just suits our fancy. For those of you who have not ever tuned into a first Thursday of the month on the Dr. Kevin Show, Matt Connarton and I go way back. He has a Monday through Friday call-in show, 4 to 6 at 95.3 NMH. And you can also go to IPMNation.com, where you will see Matt all over the place on video, on radio, and with a violin as he sings like a cat on a hot tin roof. Matt, are you there?
I wish I could play the violin. That would be awesome. I am here, yes.
Yes, yeah, you just pick it up and, fiddle with it a little. Yeah, that's all.
Well, no, that would be it. I can't play the fiddle either.
Oh, Matt, you're breaking my heart here. Anyways, as we go through our day and we go through the world, remember, we are a live call-in show, and you can call in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. Or you can go to facebook.com/MyDrKevin, MYDRKEVIN. Make sure you like the page, and right at the top, you will see a place where you can post in the line any questions you have for Matt and I, and we will bring them on air. The only thing we ask guests, whether you call in or you type in or social media in, is that you be respectful. We don't care what kind of opinion you have, but don't be judgmental, don't be mean, be respectful when you express it. And it's about what you think, not about what somebody else did. So, Matt, how are you these days?
I'm doing well. The world we live in continues to be maximally exciting and unpredictable.
Yes, there is lots of unpredictability, and there's lots of stuff I'm sure that you are going to bring into the Dr. Kevin Show, knowing that you are a bit of a political buff and do it all on your show all the time. And we don't talk about a lot of politics here, except when you're here. That's why I bring you on. Politics is part of the world. You may not like it, but trust me, it affects you. And even if you ignore it, it affects you. Even if you don't vote, it affects you. So this is the week, 1 week a month, where we try to bring it to you with maybe just a little different point of view. But before we get into the political stuff, because we also talk about other things, I want to talk about rude people on social media. And I want to talk about rude salespeople on social media. So let me ask you this question. When was the first time you remember, and this had been back in the days of you opened a letter in the mailbox or you picked up the phone, that you remember a really obnoxious salesperson that you just ended up having to like hang up on or walk off on or just go? Do you remember your first really bad, obnoxious salesperson?
I don't remember my first one. I mean, I do certainly recall the days before the do not call list, which I think might literally rank as the most popular legislation in the history of the United States Congress. They somehow they would always manage to call just as the family was sitting down for dinner trying to sell us whatever it is they were trying to sell us. But I don't remember my first one specifically. No, do you?
I'm trying to see if I can remember my first one. I guess the better question is there one that stands out that you just went, really? So let's say your most memorable one. Because I don't know if I can remember my first. I think the first bad sales approach, the first bad salesman I ever had to deal with had to have been my parents when they tried to convince me to eat something that I didn't want to. So, I mean, I'm sure that was the first time I came up against a really bad salesperson. But,
I mean, I remember that. I don't know if this counts, and maybe this isn't the greatest example to bring up on D-Day, the anniversary of D-Day, but we would get calls when I was growing up from the military, trying to get me to join when I was in high school, because they would come to the schools, the recruiters, and try to recruit people. And they would call sometimes at night and try to get me to go in for a meeting where they would try to recruit me. And, my dad was a veteran, is a veteran. He was a Navy SEAL. But yeah, and I remember they would use some pretty high pressure tactics, and I had no interest in joining the military, so I would resist that. But I remember finding them kind of obnoxious. I remember the very last one I ever spoke to. It was when I was a senior in high school and I was about to graduate, and I had learned a tactic where I would agree to go and meet with them. I would agree to go down to the recruiter's office, and then I would just not show up. I would agree to it to just get them off the phone because I was tired of their high pressure sales tactics. And then I would just not show up, and then they'd be mad at me and would leave me alone for a while. And I remember the very last conversation I ever had with one of them when I was a senior about to graduate. And then the guy actually said to me, "Now make sure you show up now. Don't make the appointment and then not show up." And I was like, "Oh, no, don't worry. I'll be there." And, of course, I didn't show up. So does that count?
That counts. Okay. That absolutely counts. Well, it's interesting because one of the ones that I remember – and part of this falls into you went exactly, I mean, you must be psychic, Matthew, because I was going to say, and how did you deal with them? What's the best solution? So today's first question on the Dr. Kevin Show is, what's the most obnoxious sales experience you've ever had, and what's a way to deal with an obnoxious salesperson? And we would love to hear some of the ways that you deal with obnoxious salespeople. And this all came up, I'm going to tell you, it's my hot under the collar. Because I basically, just had a run-in with somebody with social media. And I will get to that at some point because I want to make sure I share this lovely woman's name and how somehow I should ban myself from social media because I don't recognize how good her offer is. A very interesting approach at best. So probably one of my most obnoxious salesmen were I think they were I always have a little bit of a hard time remembering, but I'm pretty sure they were Mormons that showed up at my doorstep. And that's just another salesman to me. I mean, they're selling God, but,
right?
It's still a salesperson. Salesperson's coming to sell me God, and
yes.
And the first time they came, I had just moved back in with my parents as a young adult because I was going back to college, and they said, "Well, we're happy to have you stay here rent free if you're in school full time." And I had been managing on my own for a few years, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to take them up on this. They don't help me per se with school. I have to pay everything to do with school, but if I can stay here, that helps." So I took that offer. I appreciated that offer.
Yeah.
And so I had but I was working a third shift job. I was a third shift manager at a hotel. So I slept during the day, and my parents would go to work and I'd be sleeping. And so it's like 11 in the morning. They knock on the door and ring the doorbell and knock on the door and ring the doorbell. And I go and there are two young men all dressed up in suits and all of this stuff. And I do speaking about sales calls, that was a sales call from the RNC that I just unplugged.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my. Maybe I should have answered. I wonder if I could, anywhere I could get him on the air. I would love to have the RNC on air with me. I have a few thoughts for them that they might want to take back to their bully in chief. So I go out there and I said, I'm like, excuse me, I work third shift. You just kind of woke me up in the middle of my night. You know, like I've been sleeping for maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and I don't know. Have you ever worked third shift, Matt?
I never have.
It really can mess with you, you know, when you're trying to, like,
I don't doubt it. No, I was just going to say, I don't doubt it, yeah.
And I was like, you know, you woke me up. I need to go back to bed. I'm really not interested. And, but I was nice about it. I just closed the door. Week later, they show up again. They may have been the same two boys, young men, I don't know. But I was a little meaner this time. You've woken me up. I asked you not to come back. I'm not interested. This is my middle of my night. Please do whatever you need to do to take this address off. Well, the next time they came, time 3, was on my day off. And I was starting to smell a rat. Because my mother, after my oldest brother had gotten killed, and he was like 24 and suddenly got killed, my mother had gone what I call God shopping. And had tried out all these different churches. And she was not too happy with my lifestyle, shall we say. But, and so I started to smell a rat when they knocked on my door on what was my day off. That somehow either they didn't get the memo or somebody was specifically letting them know when they could catch me to see if my soul could be saved.
Ah.
Well, yeah. I was pretty sure. So this is how I handled it. This is my way of dealing with it. Because you see, at that time, my day off fell over when my parents were gone on vacation, which I also thought was very well timed. Because I had mentioned to my mother and stepfather about how irritated I was with these people. They're like, well, maybe, my mother's like, well, maybe be nice to them. Maybe you should listen. You're already awake, you know. And like she was like semi-defending them too. So that was also making me suspicious.
Yeah.
So I just happened to have, I had a boyfriend at the time, and my parents were on vacation, and he was staying with me. And we were somewhat engaged in boyfriend-like activities when the doorbell rang. And I looked out the window and I saw who it was, and I jumped up out of bed, bare naked, went to the door, flung it open. They're standing there looking at me at my door as I'm standing there naked. And I let them know that unless they want to come in and join me and my boyfriend in bed, they need to leave and never come back. And you know what? That did it. They never came back. So that was my most irritating. Well, yeah, you know, one of my most irritating. And that was my solution. So what do you think? How did my solution? Did you like my solution, Matt?
Well, you said that they never came back, so it certainly sounds effective. It's hard to argue with success.
Yeah, that's what they tell me. It's even hard today to argue with failure because if you twist it well enough, they're going to, like, believe you, even when you've lied over 11,000 times in your presidency, right? You can't argue with failure either. Right. So, again, if you have a irritating salesperson story and a way in which you dealt with it successfully or that you would like to share, you can call in at 202-570-7057. And we're going to move on from this topic in a minute, but I want to share this woman, Donna M. Coates. And she had reached out to me actually in 2017. And she was part of a couple of groups I was on. I didn't know her personally, but she sent me a friend request. And I said, okay, because she was part of a couple of the same groups I was. And she sent me a little sales pitch. And you know what? The first time that I have an interaction with anybody, and all they do is send me this long, drawn-out sales pitch about how fabulous they are and what something free I can get from them if I'll just talk to them. I have a tendency sometimes to just go and block them and be done with them because it's like, sure. You know what? If you really want to interact with me, and we're in a couple of groups, start some conversation. Say, hey, I noticed you're into this or this. Make some effort instead of walking. It's like walking into, even though it's on social media, it's like walking in the room and go, hi, thank you for opening the door. Now I have walked into your room. I'm going to tell you absolutely how fabulous I am and why you should absolutely work with me, no matter who you are, what you're about, whatever concern you have in the world. I am just fabulous. Can you not see how fabulous I am? Now click my button here, oh baby, and we'll show you how you can be fabulous too. Like, really? Really? Yeah. Yep. Zero on the you're going to get me to click. Just is not going to happen. I don't know how many times you say free. How many times you say thousands every month. I don't care how often and how deep you're piling that bowl. If you can't even reach out and try to have a conversation or note something on my line or try to engage me, try to build relationship. I mean, you know this. I think most of my listeners know this. If they've been following me long enough, they know. I used to be a sales training manager, right, Matt? You remember that?
Yes, absolutely.
I trained salesmen for American Express, and I was successful enough, and I trained some salesmen that were really successful enough, truly successful. And it wasn't by ramming something down somebody's throat as fast as you can, hoping that they might have a knee-jerk reaction and push click or say, tell me more. I even taught this, I taught networking and approaching. So I can recognize a really bad approach. And this woman just really had a really bad approach. And I didn't respond, and she went away. And I thought, well, I probably just should have blocked her. But then the other day, she asked me, hey, Kevin, how's online business treating you these days? Okay, this is the middle of my business day. I'm very busy these days. My business is pretty busy, and I got a lot going on in my personal life. I am not engaging in this conversation in this moment. And we'll be right back to finish this story with Matt Connarton, and then find out what kind of political trouble are we in now. Here on the Dr. Kevin Show.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hello, and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show, where I have Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed. And we're just giving the world a spin today and talking about different things going on in the world and the news. And right now we're talking about obnoxious salesmen. And if you have, who has been your most obnoxious salesman, and what did you do to get rid of them? And what would you like to say to people who are trying to sell you something that might actually work with you? I know for me, building a little bit of relationship might do. So as I was saying, so this woman, like on Tuesday, she reached out of nowhere. How's business treating you these days? I don't have time to answer this. My business is actually really busy right now. I don't have time to answer this. And I don't have to answer this. I am not required to respond to you on Wednesday. Again, capital letters. So now she's shouting at me, Kevin, how's online business treating you these days? I'm thinking, okay, now you're just obnoxious. Like, you know what? I am not required to answer you in 24 hours because you're trying to sell me something. If you were calling into my cell phone, I wouldn't even pick the cell phone up. But because I made the stupid mistake of connecting with you on Facebook and social media, you think that you can now scream at me because I'm not giving you your attention and you're throwing a tantrum like a 2-year-old child. And that somehow is going to make me want to work with you. And then this morning, day 3, Facebook is indicating that you are capitalized. In fact, seeing my messages, Kevin, one last time, how's life treating you? Business these days. So I'm thinking, okay, you tried every day for a day in a row. You have no idea what's going on in my life. I bet you didn't even go to my Facebook page. You might have seen something posted like, hey, I'm on a wonderful vacation. If you have a business question, wait until I get back. You have no idea. Maybe I'm checking it on my phone. You don't know. But what you've just tried to do is done shame-based selling. I am somehow beholden to you, and I owe a response when I didn't ask you to contact me. This is the height of unprofessional salesmanship. And one of the things this woman is offering me how to do is get more leads and get more business through sales. In her long blah, 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 which I actually read, she's telling me how she's going to help me expand my business and get more leads and do better sales. Well, I'm not seeing an example. Does this sound like a good example to you, Matt?
No. And if you don't have time to answer her, that's she should probably take that as a pretty good indication that you don't need any help.
And I might not be interested. And at this point, she irritated me. So she poked the bear one too many times this morning. And I said, did I invite you to harass me? I get things as I see their priorities in my life, and my business is so busy, answering this has not been a priority. And I'm thinking, she told me it was the last time. And of course, then when a salesman lies to you, all credibility goes out the window. I have phone messages from, for the last time, I'm contacting you to see if you get the email about how I'm going to do this and this and this with you, and you need to call me back, and this is the last chance you have until next week when I have another last chance. And next week I have another last chance. You think you're building any kind of reputable credibility in my eyes here when you use these tactics? None. So she responded to me. I guess you're already creating a high 5 or 6-figure monthly income then. And it seems you're closed-minded to communicating with others, especially in social media communities. So you should do everyone a favor and remove yourself from social media.
She said that?
Yep.
Wow.
So for everybody out there, I'm not going to put her name on my timeline because I'm hoping that the rude, obnoxious, arrogant wench, and I use that term literally.
Wow.
Somebody that tries to screw you. I mean, that's what a wrench does, right? Oh, I said wench. Well, close enough.
I was going to say, I thought you said wench.
A little play on words there. That she thinks I should remove myself from social media because I'm not going to put up with her 2-year-old tantrum because I haven't got back to her in 24 hours. You're not my client. I don't owe you anything.
Right.
I'm not going to say what I was going to say, but I'm going to think it, and I know that my audience is telepathic enough that they can stick the appropriate word in at the end of that sentence.
Yes.
And that there are all sorts of reasons and ways to be on social media. But being obnoxious, rude, arrogant, and persistent when somebody is clearly ignoring you does not, So again, Donna M. Coates. If a woman named Donna M. Coates reach out to you on Facebook, Coates, I am reading exactly what she put on my line. I'm letting you know that if you want a high-pressured sales pitch from somebody who's going to sell you something that they're clearly incapable of providing, at least in the exchange, who's trying to get you to do it, in my esteemed opinion, then ignore any request you get from this woman. That's all I can do. So that being said, so tell me, what is the most tantalizing or exciting or story that's going on in our political world, Matt, that you think is telling us something? What's the latest page in the soap opera known as DC that you think we should be paying attention to?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest story right now is Trump is threatening Mexico with these tariffs, and now he's saying that he's planning to declare a new national emergency in order to impose the tariffs on Mexico. And, he's getting some pushback, of course, from many Republicans in Congress who think that this is a terrible idea, that it's going to damage the economy. Pretty sure they will ultimately just roll over for him, like they always do. I talk about this a lot on my show about how Trump's trade policies are really an example of how this is Trump's party now. The Republican Party for a long time had been the party of free trade. They didn't like tariffs. They were the party of free trade, free market economics. And then Trump came along and said, no, we're now the party of tariffs. We're now the party of protectionism. And we're not the party of free trade. And then the entire Republican Party just kind of shrugged and said, oh, okay, we're the party of protectionism now. We're no longer the party of free trade. And, Chuck Grassley, senator from Iowa, he kind of gets his hackles up a little bit and pushes back on this stuff. But in the end, he rolls over for Trump, and so do the rest of them. And I think they will on this as well. But these tariffs are terribly damaging. Trump likes to present it as this is his way of punishing these countries, whether it's Mexico or China or whomever, because they're the ones who end up paying the price for these tariffs. But in actuality, all it does is it makes these goods that we buy from these countries cost more, and they're really just a tax on the American people. And but if you're a MAGA person, you don't question anything Daddy says, and so 40% of the country is just fine with it.
Well, I keep on seeing these things that say that the Republican Congress, the Congressional Senate, is saying that they may vote to limit Trump's power in doing these tariffs because they see it as a disaster for their reelection, because it's going to be hurting it's going to be hurting the local person in many of these people's districts. And let me tell you, there's not a Democrat out there that's not going to point out the fact that they're paying more for this stuff, or they've been personally hurt by these tariffs, and that the person that they're running against wouldn't stand up to a bad idea because it was Trump, and they're paying the price for it. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm seeing these stories that say there's a lot of mumbling that the Senate may actually revolt on this one. Do you think there's any possibility for that, or are they just saying it?
No, I think they're just saying it. I think they'll roll over because ultimately they're afraid to challenge Trump on anything because, like I always say, I mean, with Trump and the Republican Party, it's the greatest example of mass hypnosis I've ever seen. I mean, there might be one other example in the history of the world that comes close. But, no, it's Trump's party now. And, the MAGA people, people who voted for him, people who wear those stupid-looking red hats, they believe whatever Trump shovels at them. And I'll give you an example. So when Trump about maybe 6 months ago, I read this piece. It was on one of the big websites. I forget which one it was now. I might have talked about this before on your show, where it was becoming very evident that Trump's trade war with China was having a terrible effect on farmers in the Midwest, particularly in Iowa. And farming bankruptcies have gone up sharply, and the farming sector in this country is being destroyed. And so these reporters, these journalists who wrote this piece, they're talking to these farmers in the Midwest, and they're asking, these farmers who supported Trump, and they're asking them, well, how do you feel about Trump now? And do you, obviously you're not going to vote for him again, right? And the attitude among most of these farmers is apparently, well, he's my president and I support him no matter what. And, it's unfortunate what's happening to my farm, but obviously he understands something that we don't. And, so, it really is incredible. It's like, so basically, if you're a MAGA person, Trump can destroy your life. Trump can ruin your livelihood and destroy your life, and you'll still support him. So no, I think ultimately these Republicans will roll over because they realize, just like they roll over on everything else, because they realize the hold that Trump has on these people is so strong, and it absolutely trumps everything else, including their own well-being and their own self-interest. I've never seen anything like it. So no, they'll roll.
So, well, it's very interesting because there was one clip that I caught of a farmer that has been on a couple of times who has basically now said that I can't remember who it is. It's like Farmer somebody, and he's on one of the major like GMAs or Today Show, and he's been on there a couple of times, and he has now declared that he and several of his farmer friends are not voting for Trump next time.
Oh, there's a few of them, sure. But here's the scary thing, though, Kevin. You keep seeing the same guy, right? Because they have to seek out these people. It's not like they're finding them in droves, these farmers who are upset with Trump. Most of them are fine with it. They're actually fine with having their family farms just go up in smoke because Trump says things like, well, you got to take the hit for your country. This guy who doesn't pay any taxes actually shames these people into taking one for the team because it's out of patriotism, because it's what's good for the country. In the long term, it's good for the country. It's stunning, and they go along with it. Yeah, you'll see a couple farmers on cable news. There's a couple of them, but you keep seeing the same ones because it's the same guys. Most of them, no. Whatever Daddy says, that's what they go with.
So now so what did you think of when he was over there doing all the D-Day stuff, and his declaration was, because he wasn't allowed to serve in the military himself, he has made up for it because he has the biggest military budget ever. And that's how he's made up for the fact he wasn't allowed to serve. Did you see that one?
I didn't see that one, but I think that must be what Chris was talking about right before we went on the air, because he said something to me about that. I didn't see that clip yet. That's pretty disgraceful. But that's the arrogance of him saying something like that. Yeah, that makes up for it somehow.
So this is a hot topic. This is a hot argument that I had recently with somebody, and I'm going to bring it to you and see what you think. You and I don't always agree. We've disagreed on some stuff. There's been a few times when you've been wrong and I've had to correct you. Which is there any benefit, and do you think the House should start impeachment? Mueller's given them enough stuff in the report so they can do it. We know the Senate's never going to pass it unless the impeachment bridges a potential new Senate that might have a shift of energy in it. But pros and cons for impeachment. And do you think that Nancy Pelosi is trying to play a longer game?
I think she is playing the longer game. Apparently, she said to Democrats recently that she wants to see Trump not impeached, but actually in prison. So what that means is the game is, rather than trying to impeach him, just try to beat him in the election. Because once he's no longer president, he can be indicted. And he's got some indictments coming his way. I mean, he may not be indicted for obstruction of justice, but, there's still a myriad of investigations that are ongoing. There's plenty of stuff he can be indicted for once he's no longer president. Because the risk that Pelosi sees is clearly that, you can indict him in the House, or you can move to impeach him in the House, but he's going to be tried in the Senate, and it's a Republican-controlled Senate. So if he's tried in the Senate and they simply acquit him, then does that not put him in an even stronger position going into the 2020 election? Because now he'll use that to say, look, the Democrats, they keep trying, but here I've been vindicated again. I was vindicated in the Senate. So he might end up in a stronger position. So I tend to think she's probably right. If there's no chance of actually impeaching and removing him, is it worth the risk, or does he become more emboldened? Now, of course, it's a big risk in the other direction, right? If she does nothing and then he wins re-election anyway, which I think he has an excellent chance of winning because, like I said, everybody who voted for him not literally, but virtually everybody who voted for him the first time will vote for him again. And then you got to figure all these MAGA households with kids who weren't old enough to vote in 2016, but will be old enough to vote in 2020. He's going to, pick up some new voters there to make up for whatever voters he's losing. So it's a risk. I mean, she's playing she's taking a calculated risk by saying, no, let's not impeach him, let's beat him, and then he'll be indicted. But I think she's probably right.
So you talked about, you'll have some people from MAGA households, which kids don't always vote like their parents. Sometimes kids see how stupid their parents be. So I don't think it's a guarantee because you were raised in a MAGA household that you're going to go that way.
Oh, that's true.
There's also the independents, and there were independents that voted for Trump. I'm not sure that they're going to go that way again. And that's true. Long enough, there's not a large enough group to at least make some kind of difference in some of these states that were close. We'll be right back with Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
911, what is your emergency?
My kid shot himself.
All right, where's the wounds?
911, what's your emergency?
Please help, my son shot his brother.
911, what is your emergency? Okay. 911, please state your emergency.
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns.
It wasn't locked.
Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. And we're talking about some of the stuff going on in politics right now. And I'm on with Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed. You can listen to Matt Monday through Friday, 4 to 6, at his live call-in show on 95.3
WMNH, yes.
WMNH. Now you can just easily go to ipmnation.com, and you can lock into all of the stuff that Matthew is doing, including you can find the Dr. Kevin and Friends 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, streaming TV station.
Yes.
So you can come and listen to us there. We were talking about the independents. I mean, I think Trump's lost a lot of the independents with these shenanigans because they were hoping, because they're not the dyed-in-the-wool MAGA fans, because they'd be Republicans, not independents. So,
that is true. Yes.
Is there enough of them to shake some stuff?
Yeah, I mean that's the one hope. We'll see. I mean, but I mean that's how it is usually anyway. If you think about it, I mean, even if you take Trump out of the equation, I mean, I think typically, Democrats vote for Democrats and Republicans vote for Republicans. So it really is. I mean, these elections really are won and lost amongst the independents. I mean, you always hear about the Reagan Democrats, and there certainly were some Clinton Republicans and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's there certainly are some independents, I'm sure, who supported Trump who've become quite disenchanted with him. But I don't know how many. I mean, it's funny. Like, I know a lot of libertarians, Kevin, who, and of course, here in New Hampshire, we have a lot of them. And even libertarians that I know, not all of them, but some of them really like Trump. And I can't figure it out other than they also somehow have fallen under his spell. It's bizarre. I just don't get it.
There's got to be somebody on a street corner doing some pretty serious Kool-Aid selling.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. So we do have. So there are two other things I want to make sure we cover in this. And then, was there anything you wanted to make sure we covered? You're usually a fly by the seat of your pants, but I always want to ask.
I appreciate your asking, but not particularly. I mean, it's, there's always a million different things going on in this era, so I'm happy to talk about whatever.
So next week's the deadline for second-tier candidates to either get in or not get into the Democratic debates. There are 13 candidates who can book their tickets, and everybody else is up for grabs. So right now we've got, of course, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Peter Buttigieg, who all tend to be running in the top 3 to 4 slots. Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Beto O'Rourke. We weren't sure that Beto was going to make it because he had that false launch, it seemed like. Cory Booker, Amy Klob. I'm not going to pronounce her name right.
Klobuchar.
Yeah, Klobuchar, sorry. And Julian Castro. Those are the ones that are absolutely going to make it. But there's a few that are out there that are kind of hanging out that may, and some are well-known names like Christine Gillibrand and
I'm really surprised. Kirsten Gillibrand, I'm really surprised that she is not doing well at all. I thought she would be a much stronger candidate, and I'm disappointed that Tulsi Gabbard isn't doing better. Although I expected not to do well, but she is the most anti-war of any of them, and I really had some high hopes for her but it doesn't look like her campaign's going anywhere.
So now, again, I'm going to be consistent if nothing else. My guy Pete, he's still running pretty high. Are we looking at maybe You know, there was a lot of people that said when Obama was running out of nowhere first time in the Senate, very first time in the Senate with not a lot of actual political experience, America will never elect a black man. Well, they did 2 terms.
I always thought we'd elect a woman before we elected a black man, to be honest with you.
Well, it's so funny. You remember my friend Dara?
Yes, of course.
Back when Obama was running and he was up against Hillary Clinton in the primaries, she looked at me and she said, she goes, they will elect a black man before they will put a woman in office because there's just too much hate and fear of a woman in power. It scares all of these redneck men. So she goes, until they just wet their pants. So they'll vote for a black man before they'll vote for a woman, and she called it.
Yeah, I think if it had been a different woman, though, I think a different woman other than Hillary would have had more of a shot because, I mean, wouldn't those same rednecks, you know, that are so afraid of electing a woman, wouldn't those same rednecks also be afraid of electing a black guy? You know what I mean?
Well, and it's now going to be 12 years later. We may say that there may have been some stuff that happened in the 12 years that makes it not as much of an issue, but still, the women are all, I mean, the top 3 slots are consistently men.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yep. And you know, and what does he call himself? The Lebanese war vet, millennial gay mayor from South Bend or something. He goes this whole litany of all these different reasons why people are going to say he won't get elected, for, you know, or whatever. He puts all those labels out, but he's still doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So are you, so of the ones running, if you were to say today, this is the one that I would absolutely vote for if they got the Democratic nomination, who would be your top choice and why?
I would say Tulsi Gabbard because she seems to be very interested in, you know, going against the military-industrial complex. I don't know that any of these other folks really want to do that. I mean, in terms of foreign policy, I don't see much daylight anymore between Republicans and Democrats. Growing up, it was always sort of, you know, the Republicans were the hawks and the Democrats were the doves on foreign policy. But it seems to me like now they're all hawks. I mean, during the 2016 campaign, I thought Hillary Clinton was more of a hawk than Trump. It was kind of a paradigm shift. You know, she was the one who wanted to put a no-fly zone over Syria, not him. So I haven't seen anything out of the rest of them that necessarily leads me to believe that they would be particularly anti-war. But I think she is, and I think that might be part of what's holding her back, by the way. But no, I would go with Tulsi. And I know you probably, I know you're very enthusiastic about Mayor Pete.
I think that, you know, I'm going to stay there because I think as somebody who served and somebody who saw people get killed and had to kill people and on the war ground, I think he's going to be much more conservative about actually engaging the military. He talks about there's a place for it, but it should be a last choice.
You would hope so.
Ways. Yeah.
You would hope so. I always think of John McCain when I think of that. With John McCain, here was a guy who was a prisoner of war in a war that almost everyone in hindsight agrees was a terrible decision. And yet that guy was the most hawkish pro-war senator possibly in American history. You know what I mean? So you hope that, right? That someone who has been to war will be wiser about these decisions. But McCain's an example of how it doesn't always work out that way. But maybe it would work out that way with Mayor Pete. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
Tulsi Gabbard is also a veteran. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because, that's what he's saying, that,
Right.
to him, sending men to war or sending people he went to war with, and he's not going to do that lightly or easily.
Right.
And he's going to look at all other options. So maybe he's selling us a load of crap, but I haven't found his stuff so much to be a load of crap so far. As far as I can evidence, it seems to be pretty consistent and consistent with who he is. So
yeah,
we'll see. I think that there is an inherent danger for either a gay male or a woman to look like they're soft on war, because that if they look like they're too soft on war, I think that they will get a whole group of people voting against them. Like, they
right.
just don't have what it takes to be the commander in chief. You have to have a willingness to go to war, but we want one that makes that a last option, and it's not an option that keeps going on and on, because it keeps on making the wealthier in this country more wealthy, because most of them make a ton of money off the deaths of our service people.
Yeah, it's a business. War is a racket.
It's a blood and money game.
Yep.
Our blood gets you money, and that's why you keep these wars going sometimes, is because it's a blood and money game. And, so anyways, so have you heard about the 97-year-old former mayor of San Antonio, the woman that was the first female mayor in San Antonio, went to vote and was turned away because she didn't have the authorized ID that Texas now requires? And though everybody in the room knew her, everybody in the polling place knew her, everybody knew who she was, she doesn't have a state driver's license because she's 97 and she doesn't drive anymore. And they sent her away and would not let her vote.
Yeah, I did see that.
What do you think? Have we gone overboard? And do you think that we can have any prayer of ever changing this in our current political situation?
Well, hopefully something like that is a very isolated case. What drives me nuts about this, though, Kevin, is, here in New Hampshire, as I'm sure you know, Republicans are constantly, like they do across the country, but there's a lot of it here in New Hampshire. You have all these Republicans who are constantly railing against voter fraud and talking about how many of them who are activists on this particular issue will talk about how on election day, they're at the polls and they see this bus roll up and all these people get off of this bus with the out-of-state plate, all these people who don't quite look like they're from here somehow. And then they go in and they vote Democrat, as if there's a way to know how they're voting. And then they all get back on the bus and they leave and they leave. And clearly there's all this voter fraud and whatnot. So they're always talking about these different things that they witness. And yet somehow can't quite figure out why this is, especially in this era where everyone has a smartphone and can take pictures and record video. Somehow they never have any photographic or video evidence of these obvious examples of voter fraud that they're witnessing on a consistent basis. They never have anything that shows that. So, and of course they're always talking about all these illegal. Well, they use the term illegal immigrants. I like to say undocumented, but they talk about all these illegal aliens who are voting, which is just nuts. Why would someone who's in the country illegally risk getting caught and going to jail just to vote in some municipal election or whatever? It doesn't make any sense. So that's my long-winded way of answering your question. Yes, we have gone overboard. Yes.
Okay. So is there – yes, we've gone overboard, and hopefully we can pull it back. The question is if this goes too much farther where we're allowing – there's a whole plan that came out by the guy that just died, the Republican strategist, about the 2020 census thing. I'm sure you were all over that.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. His estranged daughter is the one who kind of uncovered what he was really up to.
Yep, and shared it. And now it's actually hitting the court systems that he made this he made the case that this is a way to keep people from voting Democratic.
Right.
I mean, basically, that this is a way to do a form of discrimination.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, there's, a history of that kind of thing, with the gerrymandering and the Southern strategy and all that. They're pretty shameless about it.
It goes back, all I can ever think about is Tammany Hall. You remember in history class hearing about Tammany Hall and the corruption of the Chicago political system?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's no better today. Like, we put it in the history books as a warning. We try to make it believe that we're making sure that every vote counts and everybody gets to vote and everybody has a say. And it's a big lie. It's a big old huge lie. And if they keep on repeating it, the people who want to believe it are going to believe it, and so they're going to say, "Well, this stuff is unnecessary."
Right.
Why should we worry about gerrymandering? Matt, as always, thank you for coming.
Absolutely, Kevin. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Always a good time.
And we will talk again soon.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.